This is Audra Hicks, your Tennessee Realtor. I wanted to talk about septic systems today, so please stay tuned because I put the real in real estate. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I need to talk about all things septic today. When you buy a home that has a subsurface sewage disposal or septic tank, as we call it, we have different forms for that. Documents to sign and things. We need to look up at the county or wherever it may be, TDEC, and find if there was ever a permit, unless the agent on the listing side, as a buyer, I'm talking as I guess, a buyer's agent in that part, coming in with a buyer and buying a home with a septic system. I always do my due diligence. Even if they say that there is no records found, I go make sure that I do my due diligence and see if there are any records found. Because sometimes you might look up by address, sometimes you might look up if you know the name of the owner, but you might not know the original owner or developer or whoever it was that did the permitting back then. So you have to look it up a lot of different ways. And I have found, actually, in my research, I have found septic system permits when that listing agent had not found one. So it just all depends on who's looking. I mean, doesn't mean that I would find it or wouldn't find it, but I always do my due diligence and find that out because we need to know how many bedrooms it's permitted for, and things like that. So on the listing side, because I am a buyer's agent and a listing agent as well, so I get to know the both sides of the coin here. On the listing side, I make sure that I go and research to see if there are any septic permits on file. I have that ahead of time. I put it inside of the MLS and attach it as files. And that way we know what we can technically sell the house. If it's going to be a 3-bedroom, it's perked for, or 4-bedroom, or whatever it may be. I have one right now. They actually bought it like that with me about 3 years ago. They knew that it was only perked for 2 bedrooms, but there are 3 bedrooms. So we cannot list it as a 3-bedroom house, but you can put in remarks that it does have 3 bedrooms, but perked for 2. That doesn't mean that the system is going to be overloaded or whatever. It's people, not really bedrooms. And a lot of people are like, why do they even go by bedrooms? Why don't they just go by bathrooms? That's how it's done though. So now on septic systems, on the buy side, buyers coming in to buy, if they really have any reserves about buying because it's a septic or whatever, they might want to go ahead and get a septic inspection. What they're going to do is want to pump it first so that they can inspect it and all of that in one. That's usually, I've heard $300 to $500 depending on who you use. So now you would need to write all that in the contract if you were wanting to do that. You don't really have to. I mean that's in your thing, but some sellers might not want their yard dug up to find their septic or whatever. So I always just make sure if mine is really wanting that, we ask and say, hey, if they're not wanting us to do it, then I mean there's a reason for that usually. So I've never had any pushback on the other side. And on my listings, I just had one. The buyer done the septic inspection and pumped it and stuff. So, and up front, when you were doing all your inspections, as a buyer, if you find something in your home inspection or your septic inspection, whatever, you are gonna that is something that you're going to do. You're buying that insurance policy, as you call it, for those inspections on the front end to make sure that you're going to have a sound house, or one that you're going to want to move forward from. And because this is your time to really go over the house, do your thorough inspections of everything, and see if you want to move forward with that transaction as well. There are things that you can find that, as long as both sides are willing to work it out, then, you come to an agreement there. We were hesitant when we bought our home after our house fire in 15. It had a septic tank, and we were like, what? Like, we didn't understand septic tanks at that point. Um, and the funny thing is there, though, the previous owners were vegetarians or whatever, and they said, well, you shouldn't ever have to pump it because, we're vegetarians. And I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? So, food for thought there. So we did pump it. We pumped it right after we moved in, and there was a blanket. I mean, a blanket of where they had used wipes forever here. That has nothing to do with what you eat. And well, we told that septic guy at that point, does it matter when somebody's a vegetarian or if they eat meat or whatever? No, we don't eat red meat and pork and stuff, but and he just laughed. We thought that was hilarious. There's no difference, poop is poop, so, whatever. Um, so, but there was a sheet, a blanket in the bottom, and kind of in the bottom, like sitting, and, if you don't get that all pumped out, that can really mess up the system. So, we learned a lot about septics after we bought our home. We're not scared of septic tanks. You can always, if you have issues and stuff, there's people for that. But we did dig out the lid and do an extension lid with a nice green lid, so we know, it makes it easy for that septic company to come in and pump the system. Now we do have bidets, and we've had for years. We have bidet lids and seats, and they're heated. And now the new ones, I say, they're like a big car wash. So they do everything. They even blow dry you. So if you have a septic tank, it's always a good idea to invest in, put the money into putting the bidet lids, toilet seats on each one of your toilets. So all three of ours have it. Even our travel trailer, we have it because we're used to it. You don't use the Didey wipes. We don't use a lot of toilet paper, and I mean, it's great and sanitary too. So, with septic tanks, don't be scared of that. I have sold many homes that don't even have a permit on file. So, and it's just maybe so old that, or, they could get lost over time too. So if you don't have that, I would definitely make sure that you get it inspected when you're buying a home. Or, on the listing side, you may ask your seller if they want to go ahead and have it pumped and inspected, and we have that to show that it's been done if they're willing to do that. But usually on the buy side, that's something the buyer needs to do and pay for. Now, I've had people ask us as on my listings to at least prove that they have had it pumped and, provide that information, or they've asked my sellers to do it. Some sellers balk on that and say the buyer should do that. Some say, I don't mind, I'll do that. So, it goes both ways. I can see both sides of that coin. But we know on ours is 4-bedroom PERT. We love that. We do, that's a good thing to have, is 4 bedrooms. Right now, we are in the process of hopefully building a 40 by 64, we think, with like a 10-foot lean-to down the side. 10 by 64, I guess. Wow. So, to do that in the spot that we want, we have had to go and pull permits and go through TDEC, the environmental department, and now we're waiting on a surveyor to come and stake out all of our alternate areas so that TDEC can come back and make sure that we can move our septic lines, because where we want to build our building will go right over top of our septic lines that are existing now. It does cost quite a bit to move those, but when we looked at putting it in a different area in the back on the lower side where the basement is, on the back side of our property, it was not going to be easy to get back there. It would ruin our driveway with all of the dump trucks coming and going. So we'd have that expense plus a lot more buildup where, so a lot more dirt having to be brought in. So that means more trips down the driveway to squish it and, have to redo that. Didn't know if we'd be able to get all of our utilities back there as easily or it might cost more. A lot of factors went into not putting it there, especially when you get back there and the turning around and getting in there would be kind of tight. So we're putting it on the original side that we wanted it on to begin with. So we have to take down a few more trees and get the land prepared. Once we do hear back and get all of our go from TDEC, and then we have to go back to the county and they have to, at the planning department, tell us if we're approved there after spending thousands just to get to that point. So, so then, there's many steps to follow. So it's going to be weeks before we even know, probably a month or so even before we know if we can move our septic lines. Then at that point, we'll decide what we want to do if we can't move the septic lines. He thought we would be able to. We have a lot of areas in our yard that are our alternate areas to, have for new septic lines. So we're hoping that we hear something and get, once the surveyor comes out, we'll get moving on everything quicker. I'll keep y'all posted on that. And as we build that building, I'll do videos out there as well. So, I think that's about it on septics. I just wanted to try to go over septic systems and tell people that you don't have to be scared on buying one with a septic system. And, if there's something wrong with it, then, you'll have to go through the environmental department and the county. So, to try to, if you need a new one put in. So there's always a fix for everything. So, but it does cost. It's not cheap. It's not cheap to move the lines either. We figured that out, but we think it's going to be a better area for us to move them. It won't change how many bedrooms they say, because we were like, okay, does that change how many bedrooms it's perked for? And they're like, no, that doesn't change. So, the things you learn as you go. I wasn't for sure of that either, but having a septic system, the cool thing is you don't have to pay, your sewer bill every month, which we did for 23 years before the house fire. We were in more of the city area in Gouletsville for 23 years. And so, we had a sewer bill. So we don't have that anymore. So you save there. But what you do have to do is get it maintained. Make sure you keep maintenance. A lot of them recommend anywhere from 3 to 5 years, depending on how you use it and what you put in it and stuff. Not that you're a vegetarian or anything. So that was hilarious. The many things that they told us when we bought our home. So, but that was hilarious. I think the septic guy just about died out there when we said that. He was like confused. How does that make anybody's poop different? I'm like, I don't know. So, but there was an issue, like a blanket of Diety wipes down the toilet. So down there in the septic system. So if you do use those, please quit using those. They say that they disintegrate, but they do not. In most cases, they do not. So sometimes toilet paper probably don't, especially if you use a ton of it, you could have issues. But don't be putting things down the septic system, anything, that doesn't disintegrate. Even a sewer system, you don't do that with. I mean, it can have issues as well. So I think that's about it on septics. And hopefully this has been helpful for y'all today. If so, please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see y'all soon. Bye, y'all.